Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Sean Devlin from Servoy, and I'd like to welcome you to Servoy Tech webinar episode number 83. Today is September 9th, and we have what should be, I think, a fun and interesting and probably quick webinar about a Servoy customer who's been able to supercharge their email workflows for their customers with an Office 365 Outlook integration. Before I get started, a couple of items. Number one, this webinar is recorded, so you'll have access to it after the recording. We'll share it later today. There is a questions control in your Zoom meeting controls. And so at any time throughout the webinar, if you have questions, then you can type them into that, and we will take a few minutes at the end to go through all the questions. So no need to wait until the end. If you think of a question, it pops into your mind while you're seeing a demo, then go ahead and type it in and we will get to it. Today I'm extra happy because typically I'm putting these together by myself or maybe with the help of colleagues, but I'm up here alone presenting. So it's always nice for me when I am joined by a guest, and it's especially nice for me when I'm joined by a Servoy customer. So today I'm happy to welcome the guys from Next Legal. I could tell you about Next Legal, but I think it's better to ask them. So let me introduce Peter Dijkhausen and Thias van der Spray to the call. Guys, are you on there?
Hi guys, my name is Peter from Next Legal. For who doesn't know, the company Next Legal, we create software for the legal offices primarily based in the Netherlands, Belgium, and some overseas countries like Curaçao and that kind of stuff. We make it for lawyers and notaries and some tax departments at big companies. My colleague next to me is Thias. And Thias, can you tell something about yourself?
Hello, my name is Thias. I'm a developer in Blood and in Brain. I've been working with Next Legal for about, well, just about short of 3 years now. And always been happily working with, well, web applications and any kind of integration that is web-based and data-based, where you can bring the best of big data and your shared experience data into anyone's hands that can provide, that can have use for it and provide any enhancements on the data. Okay.
Thank you, guys. The reason I invited these guys onto the tech series is at Servoy we do an end of sprint meeting every 2 weeks for our internal sprints, and we typically like to have demos. If you haven't noticed, we love demos at Servoy. We typically like to have demos of things that our own employees are working on or things that they're working on with customers. And one of my colleagues who's working directly with Next Legal was showing their Outlook integration. And I said, can we show this in a webinar? And they said, yeah, probably. And to my happy surprise, I contacted Peter and said, can you guys do the next webinar? It's in a week. And they said, sure, why not? So I really appreciate you guys being on here to be able to show this. I think this is really relevant to lots of Servoy customers. And basically what we're talking about today is integrating Servoy applications with the suite of Office 365 components. And that includes Word and Outlook, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, and I think there are APIs even for like a common API reference for all things Office 365. And this is a client-side JavaScript API library. And what's unique about this, because we do lots of webinars about integrations, what's unique about this particular one is that typically we're showing how you can integrate some other stuff into your Servoy application, and it's very Servoy-centric. But what I like about this is it's about taking what your users are already using. So they're already using these applications and actually putting your application into into the applications that they're using, sort of like a mashup. And I think that's really a big trend in software today, is to allow applications to mash, where it's not a strict boundary where one application begins and the other one ends. You see this a lot in chat applications like Slack, for example, or even Zoom. And so the more applications can work together, the greater the value is for the end user. And I think what Next Legal has done is really cool, because they've built something which I think is fairly small in scope, but I could tell from the demo that it delivers a lot of value. So without further ado, I would like to invite these guys to show what they've been able to do with Outlook to supercharge their email workflows for their customers. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, which should allow Tios to be able to share his.
Is your screen coming in clear?
Yes, it is. I see Outlook.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, take it away, Tios.
All right. As you can see here, there is a so-called side panel open right now with our 365 plugin. Some background on the data you see here is because we work with notaries and lawyers, most of our stuff is dossier based and on relationships. One frequent point was that when they need information for a email to a client or something, they need to open our program and Outlook together and then copy paste with Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V. Well, yeah, it wasn't that nice. So our main focus was, well, let's integrate the data inserts and everything nice that we offer into Outlook, so they don't have to open the application separate and have to work with Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V, but instead we can do it now directly. So, for example, if we take a dossier here, we can now add a adrc from here directly into this, and we can see documents that are bound to this dossier.
Even goed klikken.
Yeah, it's not. Oh yeah.
So Tios, just to clarify, the portion of your screen on the right-hand side is not part of Outlook, but this is your integration.
Yeah, everything from where my mouse is now going, this is all our integration. Yeah, and you can also resize indeed. This, of course, you can use the new web client, the Bootstrap, to make this all scalable. Mm-hmm. This works, of course. We can add. You can add it as a attachment.
And these attachments are streamed. So we only have an HTTPS connection to the application server, and Outlook does not have to be connected to a file server where this is stored. So our application Next is handing these files to Outlook. It's streaming it directly into the Outlook. Yeah.
Okay, that's really cool. So there's nothing extra you had to set up.
No.
To be able to do that. You just use the API.
Yes.
And as you can see here, we can add further people to, some to the.
No email address.
Yeah.
You're looking for a contact with an email address, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And in some cases, this one was what we were searching for. There can be multiple email addresses, and we can then show a drop down with more things. Well, for example, this one, and it will be added
directly into the, yeah.
And other files that are not related can also be added here, like so.
Yeah, we have created a custom clipboard in our application, so you can store their documents or files that you want to use somewhere else, and you can even use them directly or request them from Outlook, so you can add them as an attachment. So that's not related to a dossier or a file. And the third tab is in Dutch tekstfragmenten, and there are models of text that you frequently use, like a part of the parking space at your company or that kind of stuff, but that's not finished yet.
Yeah,
Okay.
the part that's not finished yet indeed is it is possible with the API after the changes that are coming for the next release. Those are unfortunately not finished yet. It will also be possible to insert text directly into the body, and well, for that it was not finished yet. I do want to ask people to take notice here of the ribbon, because as we will see now when we go to the read, is that there is a difference. And as you can see here, there are now only two options. This is because with the Outlook integration, you can separate what people can see, what they get to see when they open a email for reading and for writing. So you can create different views in this. So there
are those different Servoy applications that you made, or did you handle that with a deep link? How did you?
We used deep link. We used internal routing in this case.
Nice.
However, you can use multiple applications. That's entirely up to you. You can also use internal routing. You can set whatever you like, as long as there is some form of differentiation to be done.
Right.
And as you can see here, there are timers running. You can run them. Those are more for writing hours, especially lawyers do this a lot. They type.
It's their favorite feature, I bet.
Yeah, it's making money.
Yeah.
And you can archive emails, so you can say, well, I would like to add this email to the list, and then do this one. It remembers it. This is also a possibility to pin this. Forgot to activate that just now. And in those cases, the add-in stays open throughout this. Well, as you can see, it remembers it, because Servoy still is running on the background with the same client. So that will happen. So if your customer closes this panel, it doesn't automatically shuts down everything and wipes all the data. The data is still, the solution state is still preserved. So that's something to keep in mind. It's very useful. However, when you, one thing that I will say to people who are thinking about this can cause issues when you want to use internal routing. The solution state, you do need to work on the solution state if you use just one solution. For that is something, a small tip that we figured out already. However, it can be done. Yeah. And you can add more emails to the list.
And so what you're doing here is when you archive them, you're actually retrieving the emails from Outlook and putting them back into your application in some database or something?
Yeah, what we're doing here is creating an array of email messages that we want to archive at once for one dossier. So, for example, we email a lot on daily basis about one case. I can select select them and use them. We did create the custom array because Outlook does not support yet a checkbox that you can add to the list of the emails that you see here on the left, or multiple select. So if I multiple select with control multiple emails, the Outlook add-in, Outlook does not expose that to the JavaScript part yet. So that's why we monitor what you're clicking and add those to an array so that we can archive them on a later moment.
Yes.
Okay.
If I'm following, of course, those forums from Microsoft, what they are planning to do. From what I can read, they are planning it. I have no date yet when they are going to implement it. However, of course, we are maintaining this plugin also for Servoy. So when it is there, we will integrate it as soon as possible and possibly have a new demo by then. However, I will not be able to say as of now if and when. However, as you can see, we can then select the dossier and a folder. Well, we can do in the received email. This or yes. And it will process them now. And the list is cleared and it's saved within our database for later use.
Okay, and I assume that when you were retrieving the emails, that's also streaming it directly into your solution.
Course.
Yes, same way, in and out.
Nice. Okay. And
So you even can use it over the internet.
Right. So the feature that you were working on with the text fragments, just to clarify, the use case for that would be you open up the email for composition. I saw where you could add the attachments or the recipients, but then you could also have different templates that you could insert for various reasons why you're sending the email. Like I don't know, if I'm just saying if you're late for a payment or something, then you have a template for that, or if you, like you said, your address. And then I had one question. Is it possible to merge that, or I guess you could already merge it in the Servoy solution before you inject it?
We have a part of our software is a document generator, and we want to implement that also, where you can use a question answer construction, so you can create the body. So if we know who you're writing to, we can create the correct name there, and we can also use questions to create the body, so it's interactive with the user.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's not just a simple insert. It's
much more. Yeah, it's dynamic.
Yeah. In the background, we're working in blocks, and then keeping track of those blocks, so you know what. So you can construct if and thenables around those blocks, and say, well, if somebody answers this, or if some condition is this, then insert this. But you can use the func sets and the data broadcasting. If the data changes, it can keep track of the text within the document by usage of those blocks. So you can bound certain conditions on the presentation of certain blocks.
Ah, okay. Wow, that's pretty sophisticated. Can you talk a bit about your users, and did they come to you asking for this, or did you have an aha moment where you saw how they were working and said we could fix that? How did this feature set come into your, under your radar?
Our customers create legal documents, and the most part of a legal document is standardized. And if a condition is met, we need to insert a legal text. You can do that by hand, of course, but it's in the Netherlands a pretty old system, and we're not the only one in the legal software that are using this technique to create documents. So that is how we do it and why we do it. So the people who are using our software, does not require all the knowledge of the legal text because it's in our software. So if they can correctly answer a question, we can insert the correct text for that.
Okay. Tias, are you able to show a bit of the Servoy developer and how it, where the code makes it happen, or?
Of course we can.
Yeah.
This is the workspace, and specifically indeed the Outlook.js code, which is indeed the background of the API. This is what's running at the client side and which is handling the requests that come in. So this is basically a process.
But this is fortunately not what a person would have to write on their own in order to do this, because this is the connector, right?
No.
How about the suppose I wanted to do the same.
The connector, of course.
Yeah. So where you're actually calling the API that's exposed.
Yes. The exposed API that's grabbing. It's not grabbing a keyboard shortcut, so I'm doing this by mouse. For example,
so this is the form where the timer was showing in your add-on, correct?
This is, for example, a part of the integration of the event handlers. As you can see here, we have this whole list. This is all enumerables of the event types, and what you do is, you give an event, an on-error function for writing back. This can be done globally. This is optional, by the way. So, however, handling things blind is never a good idea, because when you have an error, you have no idea why. And you can now, and you have a callback function like this, and you can just write this one in Servoy with found set. So when the recipient changed event is called by Outlook, which would be when somebody here is added. So this would now trigger that. It's not connected to the debug console, so that's why you can't see anything. This function is called. And as you can see here, you can just use found sets and find mode and anything in this. And then can in turn return things and set and call more API handlers. And then, you can then dynamically react to things changing in your email. For example, use case can be here. If you send it to someone, you might want to include other people within a certain dossier group or something.
Okay, yeah.
Related people, you can call a lot of things, or automatically set subjects or something, which can also be done.
Right. Well, I think what's interesting is that not only can you go from your Servoy application, like when you were inserting the recipient, the CC or the subject or attachments, and we also saw that you could retrieve things from the client, like getting the array of messages. But what you're showing is a bit more sophisticated, because if I'm not mistaken, you can register to listen for an event in the document, and then when that event happens, you can react to it. So it's as if that you're really working with a single application, because you're, as you're composing the email, you can make decisions in your own business logic, in your own application, responding to how the user is using the email. It's not just to insert simple things, although you can do that. It's really bidirectional.
Yeah, you can. It's made to fully be integrated with Outlook and react to any changes within Outlook. More and more options are becoming available by the day. Just at the beginning of this week, another function was made available. We have not yet had time to integrate this within our solution. However, since the beginning of this week, you can also even have a custom response to somebody hitting the send button or something. And more functions are becoming available over time, and we will certainly insert those as well and give you the handlers to do this fast and easy.
There's a problem with this because Microsoft is continually releasing those functions. You cannot blindly assume that your customer is using the correct Outlook version. So that's a question that we need still answering for ourselves, because if we assume they have the latest release, that can be a problem if we want to use something.
Yes, that's very much true. There is a certain level you can get the metadata of the application in which your plugin is opened, and then get data. However, the API as of now is not set up to automatically switch off functions or something when you have a version that does not support a function yet. You need to keep track of that yourself. We don't disable any functions or something. You can still call it.
There's a question from someone.
Yeah, why don't we go defer the question to the end? But I think that's pretty much all you had planned to demo, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
And I bet your users are quite excited to get this.
Yeah, because it's allowing them, especially the lawyers that are mostly in the car or to court, they can just use Outlook and they don't have to start the complete application and so forth.
Right. Okay. Tias, if you don't mind to stop sharing, and I'll bring up the slide deck and we'll go through a quick recap overview and then put it over to questions. So let's see. I always have a hard time with it when I go to full screen with the presentation. Can you see my screen okay?
Almost.
There we go. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I just wanted to quickly go over kind of the setup that the person would need, and I'm going to ask you guys to make sure I have this right. Okay. They would need a Office 365 account, obviously, and then you need the plugin, the connector, the one that Tias was showing, where he was registering an event listener or calling to insert a email attachment or what have you. Of course, you need to make your own solution, but that can be any regular NG client solution. And then that solution is what is going to call those APIs to get and set things in the document and to also register for events. And then finally, you have to register your add-in, and I think this is the interesting part, because this is where they really come together. And I think at a minimum, I remember I did a version of this demo a couple years ago when we just had the Word integration. And for the demo, all I did was upload the file to identify the add-in, but I just did that on my local account. It is possible to publish an add-in in the store so that anybody can use it. And then I think for a subset, you can do an enterprise account and share it to certain users. Can you guys talk a bit about how you plan to deploy your add-in?
Yeah. We're going to deploy the add-in for Outlook via Exchange because our application is installed per customer, per office. and it's not a SaaS or multi-tenancy solution. That's why we're going to use the Exchange. So our application is always connected to EWS, Exchange Web Services, and we publish it from there, and not from the store, because we don't have the correct infrastructure yet to publish a app like that, and that it connect to the correct application server. So that's
right, because it's on premise. The actual running Servoy solution for the add-in will be different per tenant.
Yeah, if you look at that way, it's still on premise. It can also run on Azure, etc., or via internet, but it's always installed per customer. So
right, okay,
yes,
right,
but yeah, well, it is possible to use the store if you want to, if your solution allows it. However, for us, it's not a point. However, I do want to add, this Microsoft Store does have a set of limitations, what you can do, what you kind of events you can handle with the plugins that you register for, and as a bit more of a, well, you need to provide a contact and transparency document that they can upload with the app on the store, that basically, like with your Android apps or your iOS apps, it says what kind of events are you handling and all that kind of stuff. You need to declare that.
Right.
Because of privacy issues, of course, in store, because anyone can download it. That's a quite important difference with the store, because if you do it by an enterprise solution, there are no limitations.
Right. Yeah, and I think the typical Servoy customer is doing B2B type applications, so probably your approach is the most common one that we would see in our community. A couple of technical points that I remember. There's a manifest file which kind of describes the add-in, and that's what you're actually providing to Exchange, yeah, or 365 for the other integrations. And it's a simple XML file, which, if I'm not mistaken, guys, it basically gives them the URL to the application. Is that correct?
Well, it does a bit more than just expose the URL. It also declares the name of the application that is shown in the bar on top of Outlook or Word.
The ribbon.
The ribbon.
The ribbon,
yeah. The ribbon, indeed. It also, you can also have translations, by the way. If someone, you can give it in multiple languages and have language attributes linked to that. So you can rename. And it also declares, you can make it a lot more interesting. You can also declare certain criteria on which a add-in should be activated or available for activation. For example, you can give a regex line and say only if there's an HTTP link or HTTPS link within the certain email body text, then somebody can activate our add-in or something like that. You can check multiple things. However, that's going into a lot of depth, and you can have a complete tutorial on the XML, on the management XML and their possibilities alone.
Sure. Okay, and the other thing I remember is that, of course, 365 wants to communicate only with encrypted applications. So your Tomcat must be HTTPS enabled. We have a whole webinar on that subject. In the example I did years ago, I did a self-signed certificate, which doesn't really work in the real world, but it was enough for a demo purpose. So if you don't already run HTTPS on your NG client applications, it's highly recommended you do, and we have a whole webinar if you check our archives on how to set that up and ways to get that going. Just in terms of if you like what you saw and you want to know, well, how can I do that? There is currently the 365 plugin, which is available through the Servoy Package Manager. And right now, the Word version of that, we did do a webinar, again, you can check our archives, but basically it's similar. You can inject text into a Word document or pull text out of it and work on it that way for a similar type of application. The work that you saw here for Outlook is something we're working together with Next Legal on. So we hope to be announcing this soon. But in the meantime, I always love to hear what our customers' use cases are, because I believe that people building business applications have their specialty, but they have a lot of common ground in terms of what their users need. And I think that integration with really common tools like 365 is one of them. So please, if you like what you saw, or even if you have ideas based on what you've seen, send us your use cases, because the APIs do extend into PowerPoint, OneNote, Excel, etc. So the other thing that I would encourage you guys is that, again, as I said at the beginning, in terms of integrations, this type of integration I think is really unique and really more the future of the way business applications work, in that Next Legal has kind of thought outside of the box here to deliver value to their customers. They didn't think just, oh, what can we add to our application to, what's the next feature to make it better? They said, what problems do our users have in their day, and how can we enable them and make them more productive and make them happier users? And in their case, they went to the tools their customers were already using. So I would encourage you to be inspired by what Next Legal has done, and think that way about your applications and your users, and send us your use cases and let us know how we can help. We are going to take a few questions, and I'm going to leave up these links while we take the questions. Most important is, if you want to contact directly to the guys at Next Legal, you can mail Peter. His email address is there. And if you want to check out the current integration for Word, it's available on the GitHub project, also just through the Servoy Package Manager right in the IDE. Okay, so jumping into the questions, we had one from John, which asks, when you are storing the archived email in your database, are you storing the full HTML or just an ID? I guess he means like a reference to it. Guys, do you get the whole message, right?
Yeah. What we do is two things. We store the ID and conversation ID. So if you have multiple emails responding to another, you have the complete history. Mm-hmm. And we store the file, the MSG or the EML, on the file server of the customer, so that they can move it from Outlook. Mm-hmm. We have two options: or we leave it in Outlook, or we remove it from Outlook. The last one has the preferences for the customers, because their inbox is then empty, and it's better on the long term performance wise. Mm-hmm. And we don't. Okay. We do a part of the content of the email into the database, so you can look for keywords. So that's what we do. Nice.
Okay, and another question: does it run multi-tenant? So I guess in your example, you're talking about on-premise deployments, but you could deploy this in a multi-tenant, like if you have just one instance of a Servoy application server and one group of customers using Office 365, you would be able to deploy that multi-tenant?
It is now customer based. You can have multiple users, mm-hmm. and there is a bit of multi-tenancy in our application, but mostly it's per customer, not user, but customer.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and I guess
it depends on your backend, on your own backend. Right.
And I guess any application in Servoy can be deployed multi-tenant or single instance or mixed. In your case, I noticed you were at the beginning. You were doing deep links to identify which version. So you had the composition version when they're writing an email, and the inbox version, I guess. I don't know what else to call it, with the timer. Read modes, yeah. And you used a deep link for that to switch the view. I guess you could probably also pass some things in the connector to identify a user, or how did you go about doing that, or is that part of what you had showed?
What we do is we request from the Outlook what the account is that's using the add-in, and we have a user component
mapping
in our application, and that's doing the matching so that you have the add-in.
Right. Okay.
And there comes a authentication mechanism where you can say in the regular application, yes, this Outlook can connect to my next user.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still heavily in development. So we don't think about the security parts right now for the development part.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? I don't see any questions coming in, which means you guys did a great job of explaining it. So I want to thank you both for joining. It's always a pleasure for me to have guests on the webinar, and I think it's a lot more compelling to the attendees to see real world business applications and not just my hypothetical demos. So thank you both, and we'll be in touch. And again, for everyone else, this is recorded, so I'll be posting it to our archives probably later today or early tomorrow.
Thank you, and thank you for having us. So talk to you guys. Bye.
Okay, bye for now. Thanks.